here we go again. Another episodes of
Mr. Magera teaches Mrs. Magera. Or again, you guys need to make up the...
We need to come up with a name, really.
Yeah.
You do it like Magera's in the morning.
Except right now it's evening.
Yeah.
So evening that the baby's in bed. You see, there's a baby.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about
But
today.
he's so cute.
Except he is born, so reality, baby has
And
something
you know
to...
who else was born?
I think you're going to say Jesus.
Alexander the Great.
Oh.
I thought we were...
Yeah. So today
get
we
in
were
there.
talking about Alexander the Great, Mrs. Magera.
Ooh.
So pretty exciting. You know, it's cool when you ever get the guy's name whose last name is the Great. Because
Does that mean his middle name is the?
no, it's not. Yeah. It's better than like having to learn about Alexander the Lame or Alexander the Accountant or something like that. Yeah.
That was a good try at making a joke.
Or Mr. Magera the teacher. All right, so we're going to start with Philip the Great. But to begin, we can start with his origin story. As in Batman,
story.
it begins with his dad. So let's get going. So, Alexander the Great's dad is Philip II of Macedon. And Macedon, if you look at this map right here, is this little country area right up here, right above Greece.
One of the rivers was there.
No, that's Macedonia. I mean, that's
It's not the same.
Yeah. Good try, though. So if you remember about we're looking at Greece, all our Greece cities are pretty much right here. So Macedon's kind of close by Greece, but it's not in Greece. So it's kind of like, it's like that cousin you kind of know that's like sort of related to you, but kind of not. Kind of like tries to pretend to be you, but it's not really. And you're kind of just like, you're all right.
Is it
So
like
that's
French
Macedon.
Guyana to France?
Exactly like that. Sorry not to if I offended any French Guyanans in the crowd.
I don't know if that's what they're called. I
There's
think
like
they're just French.
10 of them on the planet, so I feel like we're safe. Philip II is here, and he takes over. He conquers all of Greece. You see, all this area he takes over, and he expands Macedonia into this huge area. And
Wait, doesn't this guy marry Cleopatra?
No, this is not. That's Caesar again. You were like in Rome. We were in Greece.
Really?
We're way back, yeah.
I read something that he married Cleopatra, and so then Alexander the Great left because they had a baby, and so he had to leave in case he was the heir to the throne.
Maybe a different Cleopatra.
Yeah,
Not the
maybe
Cleopatra
it was a
one.
common name.
Maybe it was, yeah.
Maybe.
But the reason they were able to take things over because they had these armies that used these really long spears, and you can't tell if these spears are around 3 meters or 10 feet for our English listeners. So they had to hold these giant spears, and they're super long. And the cool thing about it is that if you tried to attack them, you'd get stabbed before you even got close. So you guys with a little sword, you're running up, then they stab you, and then you're like, crap, I'm still 20 feet away from this guy. 10
Why
feet,
didn't
that's all
other
it's in.
people do that?
Well, they did it first, and because they did it first, they got the jump on everyone. It's like the first one releasing the iPhone, but they released a super long spear that stabs people.
You're like the iPhone X.
Yeah, the iPhone stabs them. All right, so Philip
Stabs
II.
them.
So he's going to die, and his son Alexander is going to take over. He's going to take over at a very young age. Do you remember what age he was when he took over?
He was 13.
He was 13 when he took over. Yeah,
Did you
this guy
hear
is
that,
incredible
Mrs.
young.
Magera knowing facts?
Yeah, it's 13 years old when he took over. So all of you who are like 15, like, what have you been doing with your lives? Like, come on. He was already ruling a country. Losers. Sorry.
You're not losers.
Alexander the Great takes over, and he's going to quickly begin to expand his kingdom. And he basically...
Which one's Alexander?
They're both Alexander, yeah.
Okay.
So this is him. This is a mural made during the time. And so it kind of doesn't look the prettiest, but suppose he was a very attractive guy. He got all the ladies, if you know what I mean. This is him on a horse. He was very young, very strong, very vibrant. People loved to follow him. Very charismatic leader. And he would start to expand really quickly. And he'd take his army, because this was his goal. He wanted to expand and he literally said his goal was to conquer the world.
He was like the Greta Thunberg of his time.
Kind of, except he wants to conquer the world and not like stop climate change.
Well, I understand, but
Okay.
his own situation, but kind of like Greta.
So we're going to kind of go through here and see if we can take us through. So this is Alexander, No, Alexander's not moving. Oh, there he goes. This is our Alexander, okay? And he starts in Greece, and he comes along, and he's attacking the Persians. So all of this is the Persian Empire. And he takes them all on, and he defeats them again and again. And he comes down here to Egypt, and he conquers and he takes over a whole bunch of Egypt. In Egypt, he is proclaimed to be a god, to be a descendant from the god
Hercules.
Ra. No, but Egyptian god. He takes over Egypt. He starts building cities. He calls a city Alexandria, naming it after himself. He loves to name things after himself because I feel like
I read that.
when you're great, yeah, that's what you do. So then he comes back into Persia.
And he named one after his horse.
He did. He actually did name one off of his horse, which his horse is famous because his horse, when Alexander had his was being trained, there's one horse that he was throwing off every single rider, and no one could ride it. And Alexander jumped on the horse and basically forced it to listen to him. And he took over the horse, and his horse almost has a legendary status. In fact, after his horse died, some people worshipped it as a god.
I heard that he was afraid of his shadow.
The sword, yeah, that's why the horse kept jumping. It was really hard to ride, and he turned it towards the sun. Is that what the story?
He did something. I don't really know.
Yeah,
what
he turned
did,
it
but
towards
I
the
just
sun
know
so
that
he couldn't see his shadow,
deal.
and it was like.
And his name was Bless something.
I forget.
No.
It starts with a P though. Yeah, you're right. Anyways, but back with Alexander. So he's taken over Egypt. He's gone back into Persia, but then he gets this vendetta because the Persian emperor just starts running away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And Alexander doesn't like this. He wants to finish his job, so he chases him. You see these lines? He goes all over after this guy. He's like blah 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 blah. Come back here, come back here. And he finally gets all the way up here. This is almost in Russia. So he's like gone through Afghanistan,
Celine's
Russia.
from Russia too.
Kind of, yeah. She's half from Russia. Yeah.
Okay.
And he finally finds him and kills him. And then he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take over India. But meanwhile, about 5 years have passed since he's, maybe even more, I forget, but it's a long time has passed. And his armies have been following him. And his armies are like, we don't want to attack India. We've taken over all this land. We have all this money. In fact, they took over so much gold, they had to keep dropping and leaving behind places because they couldn't carry it with them. And they were salty about this. Like none
As
other.
one does.
Yeah, they were super mad. And so he gets to India, and he's going to try to cross the Danube to take on India, conquer even more, expand his empire. And his armies say, nope, we're not going. And he sits by the river and he cries. And he bawls because he wasn't able to take over India. And he goes back and he dies.
So basically he threw a hissy fit.
I mean, if you call it hissy fit because you can't go and kill a bunch of people, yeah, I would call it more of like a man fit, but that's okay.
Of course.
So he returns and he dies really shortly after. He's only 32 when he dies. So he's a 32-year-old and he conquered...
But you know what happened right before he died?
What?
I did some research while I was trying to find Mrs. Magera's tea, which we'll get to later. He fell in love.
Yes, with who?
Right before. Her name was Roxanne.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about her. Yeah, Roxanne.
Her name was Roxanne.
Oh, anything about Roxanne?
Well, you see, it was... Okay, I was going to wait for Mrs. Magera's tea, but I have
we
so
can
much
save
tea
it for
about
the
him.
tea.
But it was true love at first sight.
Oh.
That's what the legend says. And apparently he took his sword and he split a loaf of bread. I do not know what the significance of that is, but I found that on many sites.
And he cut bread with a sword. Okay.
I don't know why that's important.
Feel free to look that up and learn more about that.
But then she was pregnant when he died with his son.
That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he never had any heirs. Because he's going to die at 32, and his generals are going to divide his empire. If you look at this map right down here, you can see this is where each general kind of divides it. So one general takes Egypt, one general takes this is where Iran is today, Iraq, some of Afghanistan. One takes Turkey, one takes this Greece area, another one takes this. So they kind of all divided up his empire.
Because there's just too much to deal with.
Yeah, it's just too big. And they can't really agree with who to give it to, and he has no sons, so they just divide it up.
I thought he did have a son.
But his son was too young. His son was,
okay.
Yeah,
Like
it
just born.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
it wasn't
gotcha,
going to
gotcha.
do with anything, yeah. But why is he important? Well, he has a huge impact because of his expansion. Basically, all this world, this giant area of the world, which is huge, it's massive. Like it would take you a long time to even drive through, and they had to go on horses back then. But they all learned to speak Greek. They speak Greek. They also he built cities that are Greek cities. They have things like Greek buildings in them, so like a Greek library, Greek gymnasiums, columns, and basically this idea of Greek begins to spread. And this spread, make sure you guys know this, is called Hellenization.
Hellenization.
Yes, it's the spread.
Too bad we
of
don't have a
Greek
student named
culture.
Helen.
We don't, but yes, that would be nice. We could say Hellenization, she's taken over. Maybe we will, who knows.
Huh.
Yeah, but the spread of Greek culture and basically making everything Greek.
Just so I know this, is Alexander the Great or before or after ancient Greece of what we were talking about last lesson?
He's after. So he's remember when we talked about the great
philosophers?
philosophers?
He was taught by Socrates.
No, Aristotle. We're
Aristotle,
close, yes.
okay.
So he was taught by Aristotle, and yeah, so he was at the very end of it. And so this is why we talked about Greece, why Greece is so important, because Greece Greece culture expands so far that it becomes common. That's why so many of our languages and words we all know have Greek origin. It's because of Alexander.
Even the Bible.
Well, yeah, a lot of us are written in Greek because of this, but there's a lot of other, it's a very important movement, this Alexander the Great guy. So, we've reached a time in our show for Mrs. Magera's tea.
Spills the tea, except it's nighttime, so I'm not drinking tea because I don't love hot tea. So we're drinking cocoa. So we're spilling the cocoa today in my Heart Suriname mug. Okay, anyway, let me tell you, Mr. Magera, there is so much stuff on Alexander the Great. Like you said, apparently he was a very attractive man.
Mm-hmm.
The ladies loved him. Like, this guy was so loved.
Girls like power.
I mean, it's true.
It's kind of twisted, but
I mean, there's literally studies that show that people are more attractive in uniforms. But that's a whole different lesson. There's literally a guy who wrote an entire book about Alexander the Great, and then they later had to come and be like, hey guys, this is fiction, this didn't actually happen, and they called it, I don't know if this is what the book's called, but the thing is called Alexander's The Romantics, or The Romantics. Have you heard that? Yeah, and it's like about how he tried to go and find the fountain of youth, or how he went to heaven. He floated up to heaven. There's one about him getting in a glass bubble and going all the way to the bottom of the ocean just because he felt like it. Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Yeah. He's pretty much like the superhero of his time.
Straight, but see, the thing I also read is that he was a descendant from Hercules.
Yeah, so some people trace his ancestors way back.
And that Hercules was his idol. Okay, anyway, that's not the tea.
Yeah.
Let me tell you
that's not the tea.
No. Let me tell you the tea.
This is a lot of tea.
So, as one has a lot of tea. So Mr. Magera was talking about the Persian king, right? Well, it is said, legend, that the Persian king hated Alexander the Great so much.
To kill him,
Yeah.
I would
but
hate him
so much that, so you know the sport polo? It's not water polo.
You mean the one with the horses?
With the horse, and it has a big
like
hammer thing, and they whack a
cool sport. If you've never seen it, look it up.
Yeah,
Pretty neat.
Prince Harry, Prince William.
All the rich people.
The rich people do it. Okay, so anyway, it is legend that the king of Persia sent Alexander the Great a mallet and a ball, and basically told him, you should stick with games instead of war. Like, war is not a game.
Kind of treat him like a boy.
Exactly. Treated him like a boy because he was way younger than him.
And Alexander was like, let me show you.
So you know what his response was?
What?
He said, I am the mallet and the world is the ball.
Ooh, good quote.
What does that mean?
Smack the ball.
Because he's going to smack the ball because Alexander the Great. And if that's not tea, I don't know what is.
That was a lot of tea. And as always, the tea session ends our...
That's the tea.
That's the tea. Yeah.
That's the tea. That's the cocoa.
Yeah. We should probably end it, though, because this video is getting kind of long.
Guys, have such a great day.
Have a great day.